The war was finally over. Or maybe the war had simply run out of things to destroy. Smoke covered the sky, hiding the broken sun of Dirac 4. It was a world of ashes now, the ground littered with shattered metal, fallen banners, and strange shapes that once were soldiers. Every breath of air tasted like burned oil and blood. From the midst of the wreckage, something heavy stirred, the sound of armor scraping against broken stone. A tall figure pushed himself up from the ground, his legs shaking beneath the weight of his battle suit. His skin was pale gray, patterned with deep scars that no healing machine could remove. It was Kareth, commander of the Vornak Legion. The once great general looked around. No voices answered him. No movement in the rows of metallic corpses. Only the whispering wind and the distant groans of dying engines. He laughed once, a bitter, broken sound, and the echo vanished into the empty air. So this is what defeat looked like. The Vornak had ruled half the known galaxy for 1,000 years. Their fleets had shattered 100 worlds. They had faced countless enemies, insectoids, synthetics, even rogue stars, and they had always prevailed. Until the humans. Kareth remembered the first reports. Small blue world at the edge of a spiral arm. Primitive ships, simple weapons, chaotic governments. An easy conquest, they had said. A perfect test site for the next wave of empire expansion. He had believed it. They all had. Now, lying half buried in dust, Kareth stared at the sky, at the faint outline of what was left of his fleet. His once mighty armada was nothing more than drifting firelight, burning against the darkness. He tapped the side of his helmet, trying to activate the comlink. Static replied, followed by a faint human transmission. The signal crackled through the smoke. Rescue shuttles inbound for all wounded. Repeat, all wounded, regardless of species. Stay where you are. For a long time, Kareth only stared, not believing what he'd heard. Humans were sending rescue teams? For enemies? Impossible. No species in the galaxy did such a thing. Not after a war like this. He tried to move, but every step sent knives of pain through his body. 2 of his lower limbs were broken. His right arm hung at an angle that made his stomach churn. But his mind was sharp, burning with the same pride that had carried him through 50 campaigns. He would not die lying down. Bit by bit, he dragged himself toward the wreck of an old fighter beside him. The ship's hull was blackened and half buried in dirt, but its power core flickered weakly. If he could get to the console, he could record one last message, something his people would hear, something that would make sense of this madness. He needed to tell them why the humans had to be feared. Kareth reached the cockpit and pressed his hand to the scanner. The ship responded with a low buzz, identifying his rank. The cracked glass display blinked to life. Faint blue light painted his scarred face. He saw the reflection of a warrior, proud, scarred, old, the kind of soldier who had never accepted defeat. But now he looked terrified. For the first time since his youth, real fear burned in his chest, deeper than any wound. He began recording. "This is Commander Kareth of the Vornak Legion," he said, his voice low but steady. "If anyone finds this message, know that the Legion has fallen. Our world fleet is gone. But that is not the warning I give you." He coughed, blood spilling down the front of his armor. The machine sensors recognized the fluid as toxic. Too late. His system was failing. But he didn't stop. "They call themselves humans," he continued. "They are not strong. They are not fast. They die easily. But they will never stop. You kill one, and 10 take its place. You burn their cities, and they rebuild in dust and rage." He paused, staring at the cracked horizon where smoke met the red sky. In the far distance, faint dots of light were descending. Human rescue shuttles. They looked like falling stars. "I saw one of them," he whispered. "A woman. Her ship burning. She smiled as it fell. Smiled. She should have screamed. But the humans, they smile when they know they are beaten, because in their minds, defeat is not the end." He pressed a trembling claw against the console. "Who are they? How can such a fragile race win against us? I must know. I must understand." The console flickered, and his transmission continued recording silently as his strength faded. He turned his gaze upward again. The clouds thinned for a moment, and above them, Several bright objects began to descend. Sleek silver rescue ships marked with the strange symbols of Earth's coalition. Kareth felt confusion tighten his chest. Why were they coming here? For him? His kind had massacred their colonies, burned their cities, took their people as trophies. And yet, the humans were coming, not to kill, but to save. He let out a weak laugh, soft and bitter. Maybe that was the true difference between them. Maybe that was their greatest weapon. He blinked slowly, feeling the edges of darkness close in. His pride tried to fight it. His heart told him to rest. But before sleep came, he pressed one last command on the console, forcing the message to save and broadcast to every surviving beacon in orbit. "This is my final report, my last words," he murmured. "The universe must know. The humans are not what they seem." His eyes closed. Wind moved across the battlefield, lifting ashes into the air. The red sky began to fade into purple twilight. Minutes later, the first human shuttle landed beside his broken figure. Medics rushed out, moving quickly through the smoke. They found the alien commander lying still, a faint light blinking on the cracked ship beside him. The recording was still transmitting. And somewhere far, far above that ruined world, a relay satellite caught the signal and carried it across the stars. The message of Commander Kareth had just begun to spread, and with it, a chilling whisper echoed through deep space. Humans are not the monsters you fear. They are something far more terrifying. This version sets the emotional tone for your audience. Tragic, cinematic, and suspenseful. It hooks the listener with mystery and imagery, and it cleanly sets up the rest of the story to explore what the alien discovered about humanity. The recording continued long after the alien commander's body grew cold. Inside that shattered ship, Kareth's voice kept echoing into the storm, rough, steady, and full of disbelief. "We first learned of the humans over 60 standard cycles ago," his voice said. "A small species from a blue planet they called Earth. Unorganized, divided, loud." He gave a broken laugh, more like a cough. "We thought they were animals who learned to speak." At first, the Vornak Empire watched humanity with amusement. Primitive ships of metal and fire slowly crawling through their solar system, sending tiny machines into void like toy birds. Weak radio waves filled with music and stories. To the Empire, humanity was a child playing with smoke sticks, blind to the real fire of the universe. So when human colonies began to appear beyond their home star, the Vornak made a decision. They would strike early, before this infant race grew teeth. Kareth paused in his message as though remembering something he wished he could forget. "They sent me to lead the first assault fleet," he said. "It was supposed to be easy. They called it Operation Cleansing Flame. We expected no casualties." The memory played out in his mind like a phantom. He remembered the first human world they hit, New Erebus, a cold mining colony at the edge of the spiral arm. 1,000 Vornak, soldiers against 10,000 terrified workers. The settlement burned in hours. The humans fought with mining lasers and hand tools, screaming into the comms, but never running away. He could still hear their voices. Men, women, children shouting in broken, static-filled messages. "If we fall, make them pay. Tell Earth we'll hold till the air burns." Even as the colony turned to fire, ships were leaving orbit, not fleeing, but recording, transmitting, documenting everything. Kareth's voice grew quiet. They fought like creatures who had already accepted death. They did not fear it. The next invasion was harder. The humans built defenses faster than any species of Vornak had ever seen. The old alien empire assumed they'd faced unity before, but this was something different. The humans argued, shouted, competed, even sabotaged, but when the first fleet returned to attack, they fought as one, and what they lacked in strength, they replaced with pure will. Kareth described the human's strange ability to learn mid-battle. Whenever the Vornak changed tactics, the humans changed faster. Whenever the Vornak deployed new weapons, the humans found ways to use them against them. "They are chaos shaped into flesh," Kareth said, his voice trembling. "We broke a dozen of their fleets. Each time they rebuilt, we sterilized their colonies, and yet every destroyed city became a symbol to them. Their courage spreads like infection. Kareth remembered the day everything changed. The Empire's main fleet surrounded a Terran world, Theta Prime, a newer colony, still building its defenses. The Vornak deployed orbital cannons and prepared to level the planet. Then, something unexpected happened. Human leaders broadcast a message to the invaders. Not a surrender, not a warning, but a story. On every Vornak screen, the humans told a tale of their world, of their history, their wars, their mistakes. They ended the message with 8 words that would burn in Kareth's mind forever. We've conquered death by never accepting it. He remembered the silence that followed. Even his crew, born warriors, felt an unease they couldn't explain. That was the first time Kareth wondered if humans were truly insane or something far more dangerous. Then Theta Prime went dark. No signals. No distress calls. The fleet assumed victory. But days later, a human counterstrike emerged from behind their own lines. Ships built from scrap, engines glowing red from overuse, crewed by people who should have been dead. They rammed Vornak warships. They overloaded their reactors. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They laughed as they died. Kareth said quietly into recording, "Laughed. Do you understand that?" They mocked death. The humans called it the charge of the forgotten fleet. To the Vornak, it became the first sign of terror. The next months blurred into chaos. The humans began adapting fast to the machines. Their engineers turned wreckage into weapons. Scientists rewrote viruses to attack alien armor plating. Soldiers memorized alien tactics after only seeing them once. And most frightening of all, when humans lost, their memories became their greatest weapon. Every failure was recorded, studied, and turned into strength. They evolve in pain, Kareth said, voice shaking. They learn by dying. His tone turned sharp now, almost angry, not at the humans, but at the truth itself. We thought ourselves immortal, untouchable gods. But after fighting humans, I finally understand. Immortality makes you weak. Living with death makes you unstoppable. He coughed again, his voice growing fainter. The recording crackled as static mixed with a faint hum of ships in the distance. The human rescue teams, slowly sweeping the battlefield. Kareth's final words for this section of his report were quiet, almost a whisper. If you ever find them, if the humans ever come for you, don't hate them, don't pity them. Just run. Outside the wrecked ship, wind carried falling ash across the empty field. The stars were returning one by one as the fires began to die. High above, another relay satellite caught Kareth's words and copied them again and again, sending his message further into the black. Somewhere light years away, it would be received by those who still believed humans were weak. And they would be wrong. Terribly, fatally wrong. This section delivers emotional storytelling momentum, painting humans as terrifyingly resilient and unpredictable while keeping the language simple and cinematic. For weeks, Kareth's message drifted through broken space, bouncing from silent relays to abandoned ships. His voice was weak, fading, but his story was not yet finished. The recording still played, whispering through the dark. We believed they would run out of soldiers, Kareth said. Run out of courage. Every species does, eventually, but not the humans. They only grew stronger. He remembered the endless battles of the third year. Cold worlds, storm worlds, cities burning in red oceans. Everywhere the Vornak went, the humans had already been there, waiting. Sometimes, it felt like the humans wanted them to attack. Kareth's army landed on a frozen moon called Icarus 9, expecting a quick sweep. Instead, they found the humans waiting in the snow with rifles made from wrecked satellites, traps set into the ice, and suicide drones buzzing overhead. When the Vornak advanced, the humans simply smiled through their helmets. One shouted through the comms, "Welcome to hell. We built it for you." For 6 days, the snow never stopped falling. For 6 days, neither side slept. Kareth watched entire regiments vanish into smoke and silence. Every time the Vornak broke through human lines, more humans rose from the snow behind them. They fight like ghosts, Kareth whispered into the recording. They do not retreat. They vanish, then return from shadows. After Icarus, everything changed. The Empire's war reports grew shorter and colder. Entire fleets simply stopped replying. Kareth attended hollow meetings with the High Command where admirals shouted at each other, blaming sabotage or mechanical failure. None dared say the real truth. They were losing to a species that should not have been able to fight. By the 5th year, the Vornak Empire's grand map, once filled with bright red lines marking their territory, began to shrink. Every week, human counterstrikes pushed them farther back. No one understood how the humans could still fight. Their casualties were beyond reason, their supplies impossible. But Kareth knew. He had seen humans on the front lines, soldiers missing limbs, still fighting with one arm, engineers fixing ships in the middle of gunfire, children sending coded transmissions as spy relays. They were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for each other. They burn with something we cannot name, Kareth told his log. They have the fire of despair, and yet it gives them hope. The more defeats the Vornak suffered, the more their leaders turned cruel. They ordered new weapons and new atrocities. Worlds were sterilized from orbit. Cities turned to glass. Every time they destroyed a planet, a message followed soon after, a signal from the humans. Calm, cold, 3 simple words. You just made us stronger. Kareth felt the slow terror spreading through the Empire's ranks. He saw once proud warriors trembling before battle, whispering stories of humans who survived impossible wounds, fleets that returned from destruction, soldiers who died smiling. One rumor spread the fastest. The Nightmare Fleet. It was said to be made of dead ships and half-dead crews, soldiers who refused to stop even after death, broken human frigates, patched with alien metal, moving silently through the void, striking at night. Kareth never confirmed it, but even he began to believe. One night, during a raid above the red world of Varnes, Kareth's ship received a strange broadcast. Static twisted into a faint human voice. We are the ghosts of your victories. Then the attack came, fierce and sudden, and vanished into darkness. You cannot fight those who have accepted death, Kareth said in his message. To them, it is only another battlefield. He paused again, voice breaking with exhaustion. For a moment, only the hum of dying ship systems filled the recording. Then he spoke once more, quietly. They have learned every tactic we know, and now they invent their own. He remembered the first time he saw it happen, the day of the Battle of Tyro's Gate. It was the largest clash in the war. Hundreds of ships against hundreds. The Vornak prepared an ambush. They had studied human battle formations, predicted every move. But when the fight began, the humans didn't follow any pattern. Their fleet scattered like broken glass, moved unpredictably, deliberately chaotic. They used confusion as a weapon, and the Vornak fell apart before they even realized what was happening. Kareth had looked out at the stars that night and realized something terrifying. We thought humans were learning from us, he said, but in truth, they were teaching themselves. The faster we killed them, the faster they evolved. Entire planets vanished beneath their advance. One human legend, the children of Mars, became the war's turning point. A colony wiped out by the Vornak returned months later as an entire space fleet built from scavenged parts and sheer willpower. Those survivors became heroes, and their resilience became a weapon stronger than plasma or steel. We laughed at their weakness, Kareth said bitterly. Now our people use those same words. Hope, unity, sacrifice, as prayers of survival. He let out a long, shaking breath. The tide has turned. The empire that once devoured galaxies now trembles at shadows. And every shadow, every flicker in the dark, we think could be them. For the first time since the war began, Kareth admitted the truth that none in the empire dared say aloud. We cannot win. Not because they have better ships. Not because they have more soldiers. But because humanity has something no weapon can destroy. He paused, his voice just a whisper now. They believe. Even when everything burns, they believe. Outside, lightning cracked through the scar heavens of Dirac 4. The battlefield was silent, except for the soft hum of human rescue shuttles combing the wreckage below. Kareth's eyes flickered once. He muttered a final fragment of the story before the transmission faded to static. The living envy them, because the humans fear nothing. Then the recording cut out, but his words had already escaped into the stars, a warning carried by broken radio waves to civilizations far away. On countless worlds, leaders would soon hear the same terrible truth. Humanity had turned the tide of war, and the universe would never be the same. This part deepens the saga, showing humanity's resilience becoming a force of nature. It intensifies the emotional and fear-driven tone, while still being easy to follow. Perfect for narration in an HFY-style video that keeps listeners hooked right up to the next chapter. Part 4, The Fall of the Vornak Homeworld. Karatha's recorded voice grew weaker with every word, but still it carried across the stars. The old commander had already described the fear, the failures, the turning tide. Now came the part that haunted him until his dying breath, the end of the Empire itself. I once believed the Vornak Empire could never fall, his voice rasped. Our fleets filled the skies of 1,000 worlds. Our leaders ruled from spires that touched the edge of space itself. But when the humans came for our homeworld, the sky itself seemed to break. The planet Vornak Prime had been the pride of their race, a jewel world built with crystal towers, endless cities, and orbiting defense rings. Nothing had ever reached it. Nothing had ever dared. Until the day the humans arrived. They did not come in silence. They came as a storm. Thousands of ships, fractured, dented, scarred by old battles. Ships that should not have flown. Ships burning with reactor fire. And yet, they came, all of them flying the same banner, a blue and white flag with a spinning circle at its heart. We had destroyed that symbol in the first year of the war, Kara said in disbelief. And still it returned. The first human broadcast filled every screen on Vornak Prime. It wasn't a demand for surrender. It wasn't a threat. It was a single sentence, spoken in a calm human voice. We're not here to conquer you. We're here to show you what fear truly is. The people of Vornak Prime did not understand, but when they looked to the sky, they began to. The human fleet did not fire a single shot. They hovered above the planet for hours, silent, waiting. Then one by one, they transmitted names. Names of every Vornak world they had destroyed. Names of every human colony that had fallen. Names of the dead, millions of them. Spoken by calm human voices, each name echoing through every street, every tower, every home. The sound filled the atmosphere for an entire day. The voices of the dead became the air itself. Karath had been stationed in orbit that day. He remembered the silence among his crew. No one gave an order. No one dared to breathe. Even the planet's rulers, the High Command, were afraid to respond. Their mighty empire was being crushed not by weapons, but by memory. They were showing us the cost, Karath whispered. Not just theirs. Ours too. As the day turned to night, a second broadcast began. This time it was a video, a simple image of Earth, blue and alive, rotating slowly with the sun behind it. The message underneath glowed in white letters. We tried peace. You chose war. Now you will understand both. And then, without warning, the human fleet began to descend. They moved in perfect silence. No explosions, no lights, only shadow. When they entered the atmosphere, every defense satellite and orbital cannon began to fail. Not from damage, but because the humans were jamming them, feeding them false signals, showing the systems their own destruction before it even happened. Our machines began to believe they were dying before they were hit, Kara said. Our empire fell to fear before it fell to fire. Human landing ships touched down across major cities. But instead of troops, they released small drones that projected holographic recordings. The faces of the fallen. Human faces. Alien faces. Even Vornak soldiers who had died long ago. The people of Vornak Prime stood in streets, shaking, as they watched the ghosts of every war appear around them. The images said nothing. They only looked. It broke us, Kara said simply. No weapon had to be fired. Within a day, the High Command surrendered. Entire armies laid down their rifles. But humanity did not cheer. They didn't occupy the cities or raise their flags. They simply collected their wounded and left behind one final signal. A message burned into the clouds with their ship lights. Never make us return. The human fleet disappeared into the darkness beyond the Vornak sun. And just like that, the greatest empire in galactic history ended without a final battle. Karatha's voice trembled in the recording now. Our leaders called it mercy, he said bitterly. But it was not mercy. It was judgment. The humans didn't come for revenge. They came so we would see ourselves. He coughed hard, his breath rattling. We thought we ruled through fear. But humans, they rule through something far worse. They make you feel like your soul is small. They make you ask why you fight, and when you have no answer, they have already won. He remembered one last moment before leaving orbit. His ship had turned away from the burning sunrise over Vornak Prime. And there, on the surface below, he saw something he would never forget. A human and a Vornak child, standing together amid the ruins, looking up at the same sky. That is when I knew, Karath whispered, that they had not come to destroy us. They came to make sure we could never destroy ourselves again. The rest of his words came softer, broken by pain and fading strength. They called themselves the United Terran Coalition. But it isn't a coalition, no. It's a promise that no matter how dark space becomes, there will always be one species too stubborn, too furious, too full of love to let it end. Outside, the battlefields of Dirac, for were quiet now. The storms had stopped. The med shuttles continued their slow search through the ruins. Karatha's eyes flickered one last time as he finished his message. Let this record be our confession. Let every world hear it. The humans are not gods. They are not demons. They are the question the universe will never answer. How does a fragile creature made of bone and hope defy extinction? A long silence followed. Then, with a weak smile, Kara spoke his final words for that section. Perhaps that is what makes them terrifying. They remind us what living truly means. His hand slipped from the console. The light of the screen dimmed. But far out in the black, his message traveled on, an echo of truth and fear, carrying the warning that would change civilization forever. The old commander's voice stuttered for a moment, then returned, faint but heavy, like a man whispering through dust and memory. The recording had gone beyond reports of battles and history. Now it carried something deeper, something that came not from a soldier, but from a witness who had seen the shape of something far greater than war. This is my last message, Kara said slowly. Everything before this was just noise, warnings, numbers, fear. But now I know what humans really are. Outside his broken ship, night had fallen across the battlefield of Dirac 4. The rescue shuttles still moved silently between piles of ash, their soft white searchlights sweeping the ground. From above, it looked almost peaceful, but that silence made Karatha's words even heavier. The terrifying truth, he whispered, is not that humans are strong. It is that they refuse to be weak. He took a struggling breath. His lungs sounded wet and harsh, but his mind was sharp. You can break their bones, burn their worlds, take everything they love, but somehow they rise again. No other species I have known does that. They should fear death. They should surrender. But they don't. They become something new each time they suffer. Karath closed his eyes, remembering. He remembered the look in human eyes when his armies surrounded them. There was always fear there, but behind it, something else. A spark that never went out. That spark, he said, it is madness. It is faith. Perhaps both. But it grows in every human I've seen. When one falls, the others carry that spark forward, as if pain itself feeds them. He coughed again, a long, dry sound that echoed in the empty cabin. The broken console flickered, shadows crawling across his face. We called them the forgotten parasites of a dying world. We laughed at them. But now I see, we mistook humility for weakness and unity for chaos. For a moment he smiled faintly, a tired, sad smile. To us, emotion was a flaw. To humans, it is power. They act from anger, love, shame, pride, sorrow, each one a kind of fuel. They turn feelings into fire. His eyes moved upward toward the small window of his ship, where faint stars glimmered through the smoke. They are not conquerors. They are mirrors. He paused, letting his words hang heavy in the air. When humans fight you, they show you what you truly are. And if you have no heart left, they force you to face that emptiness. That is why we fear them. Not because they can kill us, but because they make us see ourselves. That was the truth that had hunted Karatha's dreams ever since the fall of the Vornak Empire. He thought of the child he had seen on Vornak Prime, standing side by side with a young human amid the ruins of war. Two enemies looking at each other with quiet wonder instead of hate. I realized then, he whispered, that humans are walking contradictions. They bring destruction, yet they heal. They cause fear, but they also bring light. They break, yet never stay broken. How do you combat something that never stops believing it can become better? The recording flickered again as his voice grew weaker. He forced himself to continue, his words trembling like thin glass ready to shatter. I have seen monsters, he said. I have been one. But humans, they are not monsters. They are the storm monsters fear. A small smile touched his cracked lips. They do not fight for domination. They fight because giving up means betraying the idea of hope. Even when there is nothing left to believe in, they still believe. A faint hum came from outside, one of the human med shuttles passing close by. Its searchlight swept over the wreck, catching the emblem on Karatha's chest and the scars that cut across his armor. He turned his head toward the noise, as if speaking directly to the humans outside. If you hear this, he said softly, know this truth. You are terrifying not because of your weapons, but because of your hearts. You are creatures of endless contradictions, capable of cruelty beyond measure and kindness beyond reason. You fight your own darkness every day, and somehow you win. The wind outside grew quiet. The last sparks from damaged machinery faded. Learn this lesson. Whoever finds my message, he whispered. Don't fear humans because they are strong. Fear them because they never stop trying to be better. His breath came shallow now, his hand twitching beside the console as his vision blurred. If every race in the galaxy had their spirit, the stars themselves would burn brighter. And finally, his voice fell to almost nothing. The frightening part of humanity is this. They can destroy you, forgive you, and inspire you, all in the same moment. What kind of being does that? A long, trembling exhale. Then, only one final sentence. We thought we were the gods, but it was the humans who had the courage to act like one. The light of the console dimmed. Karatha's hand slipped away. Outside, the wind lifted a cloud of ash and carried it into the night sky, scattering among the stars. But the message kept transmitting, riding invisible waves across the cosmos. Somewhere, far away, a listening post would catch the signal. Someone would hear the dying soldier's confession, and those words would make them pause before ever raising a weapon toward Earth, because now they knew the truth. It wasn't Earth's weapons that conquered empires. It was the unstoppable will of the species that built them. Humans, fragile, fierce, and utterly terrifying, they will survive. This part unites emotion and revelation, not about humanity's power, but about their spirit. It gives your viewers a sense of awe and reflection before the story's closing chapter, Part 6, the message that changed the galaxy. For centuries, the stars carried the dying voice of the alien warrior. It traveled across silent voids, through broken satellites, forgotten stations, fragments of old wars, until one distant day, it was found again. On a faraway world circling a golden star, a race of explorers, quiet scientists from a civilization that had never fought a war, detected a weak signal. At first, they thought it was only cosmic noise. But when they decoded it, a voice spoke, a tired, rasping voice, old but clear. This is Commander Karath of the Vornak Legion. The scientists listened, and the more they listened, the quieter their station became. Their translators worked through the night, analyzing each pulse of sound, each pause, each breath. Soon word spread. Governments, scholars, and storytellers gathered to hear the message that came from beyond the forgotten edges of history. The galaxy that once feared the Vornak Empire fell silent to hear what one of its greatest warriors had confessed. They heard of the battlefield of Derac 4. They heard of the fall of the Empire, of the blue planet called Earth, and of the creatures called humans. But what struck them most was not the wars or the victories. It was the truth behind his final words. They are the storm monsters fear. The message left entire worlds stunned. On some planets, Leaders held secret meetings. Could these humans still exist? Were they a myth? Or were they simply watching from their home, waiting for others to make the same mistake the Vornak had once made? Religions were born around those words. Some called the humans the children of fire, others the eternal believers. In schools, students studied Karatha's recordings as lessons in humility and hope. In military academies, instructors recited them as warnings about overconfidence. On the worlds that still dreamed of conquest, the message had a different effect. Ambitious generals reviewed old star maps, traced the spiral arm where Earth was said to lie, and then quietly deleted those paths from their charts. None dared to go near that region again. Never make us return. The humans had once said, and the galaxy believed them. As time went on, centuries folded into more centuries. Species rose and fell, empires bloomed and vanished. But the recording always survived. It was copied into archives, stored in libraries carved into moons, embedded into the code of AI historians. And somewhere across that vast ocean of night, humanity watched. They changed over those long ages. As they always did, some lived among the stars now. Others walked on new worlds lit by alien suns. Yet, through all that time, the story of Karatha and the Vornak became part of humanity's own legend. Children on distant colonies were taught about the day an enemy looked into human soul and trembled, not out of hate, but out of understanding. And every year, on the anniversary of the Vornak peace, humanity sent a signal of their own, a calm, gentle message that repeated into deep space in every known language. We remember, we forgive, we endure. Back on Vornak Prime, the descendants of Karatha's people rebuilt their world. What had once been a fortress had become a garden of light. There were no more armies, no fleets, only great towers filled with song and memory. In the central plaza stood a single monument, the broken armor of Commander Karath, sealed within crystal, facing the stars. Beneath it, carved into the stone, were words written in both Vornak and human script. He saw what we all needed to see. Visitors from across the galaxy came to that place in silence. Some came to honor the human spirit, others to remember their own mistakes. But all of them left change. The message of the dying alien had done something weapons never could. It had united fear and hope into one truth. That strength was not in domination, but in resilience, compassion, and the courage to rise again. Centuries later, as new explorers recorded the final faint echo of Karatha's transmission, the background hum of cosmic noise whispered one last flicker of data, an old Earth signal still traveling outward through space. It was faint but steady, repeating endlessly in the old human tongue. This is Earth. We send greetings to all worlds who listen. We come in peace, but we will never kneel. The scientists smiled when they heard it. And somewhere in a quiet corner of the galaxy, under a pale blue sky, a child looked up at the stars and whispered proudly, "That's us." The legend of humanity had become infinite, woven into the very silence between galaxies. And beyond that silence, where light itself travels slower than hope, Karatha's last words still echoed. The terrifying truth about humans is not what they do to others, but how they teach the universe to be brave.